I'd like to say good evening and invite you to join us at our virtual kitchen table. We're here tonight with some of my friends. Some I've known for a very long time, some I've known for a shorter time, but I am fortunate to be able to call them friends. Tonight, as you're out there joining us, I'm inviting you also to our kitchen table. When I was younger, I always remember the kitchen table being somewhere where anyone could come in, sit down, and have something to eat. I come from a generation of women who always kept us well fed. So join us. If there's not a chair for you, just pull up a step ladder, pull up a folding chair, but join us tonight. And let me begin by introducing my friends. Actually, I'll allow them to introduce themselves. Why don't we start with probably the one I've known the longest, Caryl. Caryl, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I'm Caryl Terrell, Faculty Emeritus, English and Humanities at Chandler-Gilbert Community College. I was born in Chicago, but my parents transplanted us to Arizona in 1964, the first Black family to live in Tempe. In my family, education was paramount, as was being active in the fight for social justice and civil rights. And a little side note, in the November 1963 issue of Newsweek, The Negro in America, there was a picture of my parents and I at a march in Chicago. Another passion of my family was travel. In 1954, when I was 5 years old, we took an 8-week trip through the Midwest, the Southwest, the West, and down to Mexico City. And that love of travel has been a passion of mine ever since. I've been to 45 countries and 6 continents, including Antarctica. And I hope one day to get on the road again. Thank you.
Thank you, Caryl. You'll have to invite me to travel with you. I've also read that Antarctica has no novel coronavirus. So that's one place that maybe we'll go back together this time.
The problem is we got to get there.
Okay, that's true. All right. Why don't Francine introduce yourself, please? And Francine, go ahead and unmute. Unmute your mic.
There you go. Hello, I'm Francine Barrow. I'm a native of Chandler, Arizona. I was born in Mesa on a trip. My parents were out here picking cotton, and we went back to Texas and Louisiana until I was 8. Then we came back to Chandler, and I've moved around quite a bit since then, but Chandler is always home. I'm the executive assistant to my pastor, Pastor Sherman J.L. Ford at the Word Church in Mesa. I retired in 1989 from advertising of the good old Yellow Pages, if you can remember those. Job was very, very good to me, has allowed me to travel, enjoy my family, and just do a lot of good things. I've been blessed.
Karen, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Karen Hardin, Faculty Emeritus in the field of counseling. I teach part-time psychology and counseling courses now. I've repurposed myself after retirement. Didn't stop, still teaching. I was born and raised in Missouri, 30 miles north of Branson, Missouri. That's infamous for the Labor Day photos when you saw everyone in the water, even during the coronavirus time period. They flashed all over. They made national news. Moved west after graduating and after living in London England for several years. And currently I serve as the volunteer president for the Maricopa County branch of the NAACP, and happy to be here at the kitchen table with Dr. Ramos. Thank you.
And we are certainly happy to have you, Karen. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about some of the things NAACP has in store for us in the not too distant future.
Great.
And last, but certainly by no means least, Pastor Victor Hardin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Hardin. I was born in Portsmouth, Virginia. We came here to Arizona after leaving the military. At this point, I am the pastor of the Congregational Church of the Valley here in Chandler. I am the director of For Our City, Chandler, also part of the Human Relations Commission here in Chandler. And I'm also the president of Chandler Men of Action. I've been married for the past 34 years. My wife would be very, very mad at me if I didn't mention that, considering our anniversaries on the 31st. So, and I have 3 sons, and happy to be here.
And I, for one, am very happy to have all of you here with me this evening. I want the audience to notice that what you have before you are a lot of years in terms of elders, but you also have a lot of experience and wisdom on this screen. And hopefully by the end of our session together, we will have shared some things with you that will be helpful as we continue to move forward. So I'm going to start with the first question, and whomever wants to unmute and begin speaking, feel free to. These are the kinds of questions that we actually ask each other when we sit around. And so as you hear them, please join us in the chat, and that'll be shared with us a little later. We're probably going to answer a few questions that we want to answer. And then if you have questions for us and we have the time, of course, we'll take those a little bit later. But the question that I'd like to start off with is actually a question of hope. I always feel like hope is something that sustains us. Many of us have, through various experiences, had our hearts broken. But in that, I can say that our culture is one where our hearts break, but that helps us keep them open. So we are a people that are very open-hearted and welcoming. And if nothing else tonight, I hope that will shine through as you listen to us. So whomever wants to answer, what events in your life have you witnessed that give you hope for the future, especially the future of Black people and African Americans in this country?
I'd like to answer that first. I can say for me, growing up, my major years in Texas and Louisiana, and seeing a lot of prejudice going on. And I came back out here when I was 9, and then I moved back when I was 12. I got afraid because of the riots and Watson all over. And a change that I can see is that I, at 12 years old, rode the Greyhound bus from Shreveport, Louisiana, by myself, instructed to sit at the back of the bus, not to look the white man in the eye when we stopped at the bus stops to go to the colored restrooms and the colored water fountains. I was already well aware of that, but that was really driven home to me since I was 12 and traveling by myself. A great change for all of us has been to see a Black president, President Obama. That is a great thing. And now to see prayerfully coming into being Vice President Kamala Harris. And those are some great major things that I've seen. And just people now recognizing, realizing, and putting emphasis on Black lives does matter.
There's a few things that give me hope. I'm not going to tell my whole life story, just a part, and as you know, pastor, so I can really talk for a long time. But just the fact that the titles that I talked about were after I was 50 years old, and realizing that you can continue to move forward, even as an African American male, to get to the places where you never thought that you could be at this age. So there's a future for African Americans all over. The other thing is the meeting of Coy C. Payne. I really enjoyed talking with him and talking about where he came from and getting to know the future of Chandler and all over the country because of his hope in that everything was going to be all right. On his license plate, it always said legacy, and I'm hoping and I know that what we're going through, we'll get through, and we'll continue the legacy moving forward. So that gives me hope, and that gives me everything that I ever wanted to be. Like I said, I never thought that I would be in the position that I am, and I'm so humbled. You guys don't know how humbled I am to even be doing this broadcast of giving my ideas to people who even want to listen to me. And it is very, very hopeful that people are listening and are enjoying the hope of tomorrow. Always be better than you were yesterday. Be better tomorrow.
Thank you, Victor.
Well, for me, one event that I thought was significant was the midterm elections in 2018 and the voter turnout. And the results of that voting was encouraging. Also, of recent times, what's really given me hope is the youth taking to the streets and marching for social justice. And it reminds me of the 60s when the youth took to the streets marching for social justice and had a significant impact and changed the course of America. And I think the young people are going to do that again. And that's hopeful and encouraging and significant.
Thank you, Caryl. Karen.
Well, let me see. Well, the one thing I'll talk about, like maybe contemporary times, and what gives me hope is the Mothers in Yellow in Seattle, and often, with the volunteer work I do with the NACP, I often reflect on this ideal of we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then when I think about that, you have to think about what all our ancestors endured. And we do not have the liberty of getting tired. We have to keep on, regardless of how tired we are, stop, take a rest, and then keep on keep on trucking, as they used to say. And the ladies in yellow, they give me hope because that shows that we have more people in the fight for justice and equality. Many, all of us, we are all aware of like the Little Rock Nine. I mean, I think about what I was doing when I was in high school. Nowhere was I even aware of the courage that folks like that had. These high school students who faced the mobs at Little Rock, Arkansas, to make a better place for the rest of us. So anytime the rest of us start thinking about being tired, we need to think about the courage of those youngsters. And I have to connect that with like the Freedom Riders. Then you connect it with the mothers who were not of my complexion, who were out there protecting the peaceful protesters. And I think we have to really keep it in the forefront that not let people change the narrative to talk about how destructive were the protesters. Because those of us that kind of watch and are vigilant about the current events, we know that it wasn't the protesters that were violent and tore down. So we can't let other folks change that narrative. But seeing the ladies protect the peaceful protesters against militia who came in unidentified, who were then the terrorists, not the peaceful protesters, but the police who were there, and those mothers who came out. That's what gives me hope, is that there are more people now, let's say, paying attention to how we make America live up to its creed, and we have to do that together. We do that collectively, not just one ethnic group, but everybody, and it has to be intergenerational. That's what gives me hope, is it was intergenerational these last couple of months. So I'm hopeful for that. The youth are going to take us into the future, to what we want to be as the United States of America.
And you're right about the moms,
Yeah.
protecting the peaceful protesters, and it's a fight that we all have to be involved in. And they got a group of dads to get together and come join the fight. And so those ripple effects, I have hope that will keep happening, and more people will join in and see what needs to be done and do it.
Because like you said, Caryl, you were mentioning being out there protesting and marching as a youngster. And when we lost history, we look at the people who were at the sit-in counters and things of that nature. So when it's only one demographic, one ethnic group that's at the forefront trying to fight for change, it's easier for other folks to sit back and say, and not necessarily, that silence is not good for us. So this time period showed us that it was a multiple races, ethnic groups out, and that's beautiful. That's great. So everybody working toward equality.
Thank you all. Thank you for helping us see how the history is never really history, how it will take an entire country to turn this country around, and for the hope that you see in all that is happening now. So we do frame it as a good thing when there are so many allies who are joining with us, as one of you said, to help America live up to its ideals. But we also wouldn't be elders if we weren't realistic. And it's realistic to understand that a lot of times there are those who will try to put fear into us, basically to keep us from speaking. That's what public lynchings were about, stoking fear. That's what threatening that you'll lose your job is about, stoking fear. So now my question to you is, what have you done to channel the fear into action?
If I go ahead and start, anytime that I have that fear, the first thing I do is I run to the throne. That's what I always do. Um, I look forward to getting on my knees and praying, because fear is false evidence that appears real to us. And so I know that in my faith, there is truth. So I go to that. I channel my fears and I put my fears into action. When George Floyd passed away, I was able to talk. I was doing the prayer for the city council. And within my prayer, I spoke about having to talk to my young men. I have 3 boys, about being safe when they go out. Now, that wasn't a fearful talk. That was a cautious talk, but it was also putting into action to let uh, those who are on the council know that, yes, it's coming. And you have to understand what is going on. And there, I was able to also speak with the chief of police of Chandler, in which he released a um, a message to everyone that he had eternally sent out to his police officers. He released it publicly to everyone else to let him know. So that fear that is always on top of us, I like to take that and put it into action, so that we have someone that we can talk to. And like I said, I always go to that throne. And every time I go to that throne, it always brings me up to what I should be doing and how I should be doing it.
Thank you, Victor. Karen, how do you channel fear into action?
Well, I try to always remember to do justice, walk humbly, and sort of like walk in my faith. And I believe that if I do an assessment and that assessment says that I am doing things justly and I'm doing things for the right reason, then it gives me courage to face the fear. Even serving in the position as the Maricopa County branch president is facing fear. Especially since the murder of George Floyd, we've had so many hate calls that come into the office. Calls where people are saying all of the N-word people need to be killed. I have to try to summon up enough courage to keep on doing that work. And I have to keep on focusing on the good that's in the country. Keep focusing on the ladies who were out there in the yellow vest to say, those kind of hate calls are hopefully the very, very minor people in the country. And just kind of remember, I guess I go to my sort of spiritual roots and remember that to whom much is given, much is expected. And then I have to walk in faith that I'm doing right. And even on another note, I believe that I faced the fear by even engaging in education with the youngsters with the young adults in the classroom, right? And being a role model, whatever that means. I have my role models, and hopefully I'm a good role model for the other the students in the classroom. So if I model respect for all of the students that I interact with, perhaps that is an act of courage, listening to them and working with them and learning from them. while I'm sharing with them my experiences. So to face the fear, you just have to go and summon up whatever faith you have, and then you can move forward if you're doing the right thing.
Wow. Thank you, Karen. And I work with youngsters too. I mean, young adults.
Students, right?
Right. Okay. Francine, would you like to share? Okay.
Yes. I first of all try to take everything to the Lord in prayer. And I have to ask myself what I'm wanting to say or what I feel need to be said. Can I say it respectfully and peacefully? And it doesn't matter if it'll make a difference or not, but it's what's on my mind and my heart and what I'd like to share, because they do listen. They do listen. So I just pray about it and take it to the Lord and go from there.
Thank you for that. I think respect is an important way to speak with those where our fear would otherwise be something that would keep us silent. So thank you. Thank you for that. Caryl.
Well, like my friends at the table, my faith helps me and keeps me strong. And I just put my trust in the Lord, and I know He's going to help me and see me through. And that gives me strength. But I also think about my parents who were fighters and taught me to confront my fears and to just move forward and not let fear take hold and take over and do what needs to be done. So that's my memories of my parents and my faith.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. There's a Black American writer, and I like to read her, Zora Neale Hurston. And one of the titles about her life is Speak So You Can Speak Again. And Victor, I think that's what you're helping your sons realize when you're teaching them to be safe and not fearful. I'm trying to do the same kind of things with my young adult and teenage grandsons. Because again, I want them to be able to speak, like Francine said, what's on their heart, whether it changes anything or not, but I want them to be able to speak again. So sometimes they have the right to remain silent. But what I would ask now, leading into that, is we are still standing. So that says something in a country like Francine described when she was 12, where she was in the back of the bus, used the colored restrooms, and that was a different time. Nevertheless, she's still standing, as are we. So what encouragement would you offer young people?
Well, I encourage our young people by remembering your history. I always remember my family in Virginia, how they went through and got through. There was a picture of my aunt in the local newspaper as she sat at Woolworths with stuff all over her head as people were dumping and shouting at her to move because she was not getting service. And it's always been implanted in my head, in my mind, and in my heart. And so I've always moved forward in my thinking of what they went through and what you guys went through also, and the people beside me and brothers and sisters all around me, that we cannot stop. And like I said, as you move forward, you don't think that people are listening to you. And then all of a sudden somebody says, well, could you do this? Or will you do that? Or and not all of us can start an organization at age 17 or 18. Sometimes you have to wait until you're in your 50s or 60s to start people recognizing you. Do not be fooled by those whom do not see your potential and see your talent. We all have something to give. Continue to give and continue to march and continue to walk. Don't let other people push you away, and you stay focused on all that you can do. Somehow, some way, it will come to other people. This is who we need. And even if it's just a small voice to one person, you have done what you had to do. But never stop, always move forward.
Much like what Victor was saying, I would tell the young people to believe in themselves and to embrace the beauty of diversity, to reach over the aisle and work to bring needed change. And, you know, we hear this a lot, but expand their cultural horizons because it's so important. You know, meet, greet, get to know people who are different from them. See the difference in the differences can bring them closer together. And I would also tell them to knock down the stereotypes and readers and to do the research. So
Guess I have to add to that. Um, keep living, because it will get better. Young folks, old folks, just keep living. It will get better. Keep doing the right thing. Keep trusting in the Lord. Have faith in yourself. But remember that faith has to be directed and come from God. But do have faith in yourself. As Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high. Don't go down to their level. Stay up, stay encouraging, stay in love, stay hopeful. Just keep your heads up and keep striving, because a change is going to come and we'll be here to see it. I will be here to see it. I'm going to say that. A change is going to come and we'll be better off for it. Just keep doing the right thing, trusting in the Lord.
I think, like, as everyone here at the table, I'm sure we're all mentors and we have lots of mentees, and those mentees look to us for suggestions, guidance, and encouragement. So I often want the young mentee member that, just as they kind of look to us here around the table as mentors, that at one time we were like diamonds in the rough ourselves. So I encourage the generation coming behind us to remember that they have lots of energy, they have lots of innovation, but they too are diamonds in the rough, just as we were diamonds in the rough at one time. And be encouraged that we are there to be a bridge for them to transfer from where they are to where they can go. But most importantly, I often say to them, Know what you don't know. You know, sit back, reflect, listen to the elders, take our counsel, marry that wisdom with your energy, and assess. You don't need to make the same mistakes that we made. And Nikki Giovanni said, don't get too full of yourself. You know, you are smart. You have a lot going on, very innovative, but learn. You know, the generals, they learned through battle. So learn what the generals learned so that you as young soldiers don't have to go through that same trial and tribulation that we went through. So know what you don't know and listen to your elders, and let us help you get to where you want to go. And like you said, stay encouraged and you can get there. So
can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure to all of us, please vote.
oh, geez, yes.
Please vote, and also put your name down on the census. Please do those things. If you do not vote, you do not have a voice. If you do not put your name down on the census, you will not be counted.
Yeah.
We all need to be counted, especially those quote unquote minorities. Everyone needs to make sure that their voice is heard and that they are counted.
Yeah.
That's all.
Because it's like I believe there's a saying that says faith without works is kind of hollow. I'm paraphrasing here, and that is another message. I don't know if it's encouragement or not, but the NACP, we just did a Instagram kind of talk with some local hip hop artist, and the message, the encouragement is, it's great to go out in the street and do the protest, but if you don't march that protest into the ballot box to turn that protest into policies, then maybe your energy, it was for naught, you know. So follow through. We are around the table and we are where we are because somehow we learned follow through. And that's something we have to share with that upcoming generation is, now here we go, back to, I don't know why I'm always quoting NACP, but I don't know. They've done so much. We wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for the NACP. If it wasn't for Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, we would not have the jobs we had. We would not be in the schools we're in. So the NACP has been that silent kind of unrecognized organization that made it possible for many of us to be where we are. But this slogan that they used to have is like, let's see, be about it. Don't just talk about it, be about it. So that's kind of what we have to help the young generation, I think, add that extra step to it. Great to go out and protest, great to sit back and complain, great to say, why should I vote? Well, you definitely won't have a say if you don't get out and vote. So I just have to say, I'm glad you brought up, Reverend, I'm glad you talked about it is critical. If we don't vote this year, we got to vote like our lives depend on it. Why? Our lives do depend on it. You know, if we don't get out and vote, we are going to be in some serious situations come 2021. So
yes, yeah. I agree. Also, just to add to that, make sure that you know who your council members are. Make sure you know who your mayor is, your representatives. Make sure that you all those things, those people that represent you, let them know that you know what they're doing, how they're voting. Yeah. And what, you know, those things that are important to you also, because they count those things. Mm-hmm. They actually, if you show up to a council meeting, and I'm not going to get into that, but if you show up to a council meeting, the people on the council all of a sudden realize, oops, we got somebody here who's listening to what we say.
They are.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We have to help that generation that's coming behind us understand that those legislators, those politicians, they determine your financial aid, they determine your loan paybacks from school, if you have health care, so some of the things we have to teach them. I think Professor Caryl said it in terms of telling them to study and research and understand. So we got to make them aware of the situations that are around us, So we need them. We need to move together. We need them definitely, especially going into this election, all the way up and down the ballot. Yeah.
I just have to throw my voice out there for the vote because, like you said, Karen, vote like your lives depend on it, because they do.
They do.
In this election, more than ever before, we have to vote. And a lot of people think one vote doesn't count. And I read an article years ago, and if I'm not mistaken, it says we speak English instead of German in this country because of one vote. Because those were the two primary languages, groups of people who had immigrated to the colonies. And you had to have a common language if you're forming as a union. And they had a vote. And just think about the course of history, how different would it have been? World War II, and everything that, when we got in the war and all of that. So one vote is so important. Don't let yours go unheard. Don't let yours be silent. We have to vote.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank the panelists for taking the time to answer the 3 questions that I had. And now I see that we have some questions from the audience, and anyone who wants to can just jump in and answer this one. The question that one of our audience members asked is, what do you feel are the lessons of this pandemic and the social shifts we are experiencing in 2020? So we've got a pandemic and social shifts. So what are the lessons from those 2 things?
Well, for me, and what I tell the congregation is, all of a sudden the word hero takes on a different verb. All those people whom we looked back, didn't really notice, those people whom picked up our garbage and whom stocked our grocery shelves, all of a sudden these are the heroes. These are the people, everyday people working, and all of a sudden, that thing of how much money do you make doesn't make any difference anymore, because somebody who's making $7.50 an hour is now in control of what's going on in your life. And I think that it changes a lot of minds. It changes a lot of who we are, and I think that's really good for us, because it humbles us to a point in which, hey, now I'm really relying upon this person and not this money. I'm relying on this person to do their job, but not the system itself. So I think that during this pandemic, that the word hero has changed.
I think this pandemic is an excellent example of why our lives depend on voting. What has not happened, what should have happened, what still needs to happen, but isn't, shows more than ever that we need to go to the polls and let our voices be heard.
I think the social shift will help us not take for granted the things like sort of some of the things that we've taken for granted in the past, the classism that exists in this country, the racism that exists in this country. And there's a difference between racist and systemic racism, and that needs to be kind of explored in a longer context. But the pandemic has uncovered systemic racism and classism that have caused some of the underlying disruptions that we're experiencing right now in the country. And I have hope, back to that based on, like I said, the variety of folks who are protesting, the uncovering of the income inequalities, the health inequalities, and all the other injustices are going to bring us together as a country. And we will do better, especially if we go out and vote. We can do better. We need to be who we can be as a country. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a second question that any of you can answer. Uh, we have someone who's been inspired. That's always good to hear. This person was particularly inspired by the role of faith in the stories of the elders here tonight, and want to know, to what extent do you see faith playing a comparable role in members of younger generations? So, can our younger generations have the faith?
I would say yes. Yes, your faith has a lot to do with who you are and how you react to a lot of different things. Um, as I'm preaching, I know that uh, well, within my church and my association, they're still trying to figure a lot of things out. But during this time, I have gone back to the Bible and I started preaching about Corinthians, about what Paul sent his letters to in Corinth, and we were talking about what the church is supposed to do. I myself is under the belief that the churches should have played a larger role in getting the justices and getting grace and to all those things that we're fighting against right now. The churches should have been a part of that. And our faith should have told us that. Christ listened to a lot of different people and he heard them and he listened to them. Our young people wanted that also. But for whatever reason, our churches looked at our young people and we politicized the church. If you're not this, if you're not that, you can't be part of our church. If you can't do this, then you're not a part of our church. And as for all of you, when we went into church, all of us, when we went into church, that's how we learned to speak, how we got supportive roles, how we got into leadership. They got us up to say whatever Bible verse that we could say. And those things made us better people as we got older because that base sent us out into a world that did not want to listen, but the church always listened. And we always had the mothers in the church whom would go ahead, baby, pray. Go ahead, baby, speak. We always heard those words and they were always encouraging. So, to our young people, don't let the faction of uh, the politicized church put you away. Find that church, find that faith within yourself. As George Benson said, the greatest love of all is inside of me. I know Whitney Houston said it better, but George Benson said it. And that is something that is inside of us that we need to channel and make sure. But church is that place that um, from the basic of who we are, from the basis of who we are, gives us hope and gives us grace. And our young people, I have to tell you, I know that the church has fallen behind you, but hey, give us another shot. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. I have another question again for anyone who chooses to answer. This is about the concept of social equity with an emphasis on equity. So, what does social equity mean to you?
Well,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it encompasses a variety of things. It encompasses income inequality, health inequality, um, job inequality, all those things that make up our lives, I think is what the concept of social equity is about. And I think that's what we need to address because the gaps have to be closed.
Thank you, Caryl. I think we have time for just a couple more questions. And I do have a question from someone who wants advice as a student. And so anyone, this question is open to any of you. How would you advise students that are learning to be leaders get engaged in the change that's going to come? So how can students who are learning to be leaders get involved in the change that is going to come? Because Francine has told us that that change is coming and she's going to be here to see it. So how do we advise students?
I would encourage students to, in anyone, not just students, but everyone to look at the variety of organizations. Look at the variety of organizations that are there, that are currently in action, and they have to kind of align with the different organization that matches their I'm going to say their personality or their goals and their aspirations, because there are many organizations that are working toward the same type of change, but they may be doing it in a different manner. So they need to research the different types of organizations and look at the mission statements of those different organizations, and then pick the organization that resonates with where they are at the current time in their transitioning. And if they find an organization whose mission statement sounds like it resonates with them, then just start getting active in that particular organization and test it out. And then if that's a fit, stay with that organization, but not be hesitant to move on to a different organization if it's not an exact fit for them. And there are many different organizations that are out there now that they can align with, you know.
Karen, I really appreciate that, because in a society that is very much an individualistic society, what many of the elders at the table know tonight, as Victor was saying, as Francine has said, as Caryl and you have said, we none of this have done on our own, all by our lone selves. None of this is built on me. There were many that came before us. There are those walking alongside of us. And our role is to be good ancestors. Mm-hmm. And being good ancestors, we will tell you that you need to work together as a collective. So I really appreciate Karen sharing with us is find your tribe, find your place with others that helps you engage in the change that's going to come. We've got time for one more question. And this one, we live in Arizona, so this is a question that needs to be asked and answered. What would you like your white friends, neighbors, colleagues to know and understand?
I'd like them to know that we have more in common. We have more in common than we have differences, right? And not to let the systemic rhetoric divide us. Look for the commonality. Look for what do we share in common, and don't be afraid I think Caryl mentioned this earlier. Reach out to people who are different than you are, and don't be afraid to get it, to get to know folks of different ethnic groups or different faiths, and just know at the end of the day, we even when we talk about policing, you know, the majority of the police, they want to go home just like we want our sons and daughters to come home safely. They want to go, most of them want to go home safely as well. And it might be the heat of the moment that triggers something, but basically to tell any friends, any neighbors, any colleagues, there's more that we have in common than we have in that it's different.
I have to say yes, yes, yes to that. We are so much alike. It's not even funny. And um, as you said, with the Human Relations Commission, I get a chance to go see all those festivals, the Greek festivals and the Irish Sisters festivals, and all those different things that make America what it is. And if we are to be, as Dr. King said, what we promised, then we need to be able to walk into a place and say, I'm an American, and if you're having Greek food, let me try some. Let me go to the Asian market, and let me go to this place. Let me be able to speak to those people who don't speak the same way that I speak. Let me go to those places where it is horrible, but also let me know, talk to someone who's homeless and have not enough to eat, so I know how they feel about those things. We have to understand that we are better together than we are apart. And we must reach out to each other, no matter where you're from or who you are. Being an African American male, also part Irish, I've been given a staff by the Native Americans, and all these different things that you learn about other people. So yes, I say yes, yes, yes to all of that, because we need to be able to speak to each other and be around each other. And we're so much alike than we ever thought, that people will try to find a way to separate us. Don't let that happen. Never, don't be separated by what someone else may have said about somebody else. Find out for yourself who they are. Find out for yourself what is going on. So I have to say yes, yes, yes to all of that. Yes.
I think it's also important that not to look to me, for example, to educate you on our history. Um, Go watch the documentary 13. Check out some Zora Neale Hurston or James Baldwin. Learn about Onesimus, who brought the smallpox inoculation to Massachusetts. Find out about Beethoven and his African heritage, and Alexander Pushkin. Educate yourself.
Spoken like a professor of humanities. Okay. But I absolutely thank you for that. Francine, would you like to share what you would like your white friends, neighbors, colleagues to know and understand?
Everything that everyone has said, I really agree with. Like for them to know that I am human, I bleed like they do. Like you said, read some Black books by Black authors that are good books. Even if they're not good books, read something by a Black author. Go see a Black movie, a good Black movie, something to find out about me and my counterpart. Sit down and talk to me. Find out about my background. See that we have a lot in common. But don't give up on me. But sit down, talk to me, and let's share, and we'll all be all right.
Wow. Thank you. And part of the beauty of this kitchen table discussion is that we all bring what we bring from our experiences, whether it was the church saying amen, go ahead, baby, whether it was working with parents, alongside parents, even if it was in the cotton field, whether it's being a spokesperson for the NAACP, whether it's traveling to Antarctica. We have a beautiful, beautiful culture, but we are not a monolith. We are not all the same. And as you all have said, we have more in common as humans than there are differences. But part of what our young people, our neighbors can know is that you come from a very strong tradition, a very kind tradition. Embrace it and invite others to embrace it. So with that, we're going to have to get up from the table and do what else we're going to do this evening. But we thank you for sharing our kitchen table session with us. We want to make sure that you come to the next one, which our wonderful colleagues at Chandler-Gilbert Community College are preparing for you for next month. So again, thank you for taking time to be with us, and we'll look forward to you being here next month. Bye all, and thank you.
Bye, everybody.